Welcome to the webinar, How Fresh-Specific Technology Leads to Fresher Food and Better Stores. Today, we'll be talking about how new research from Afresh and Industry Dive that explores how fresh departments operate today and how they can address their challenges. We'll also dive into one grocer's transformative journey with Fresh First technology. Before getting started, we have a few simple housekeeping matters for our viewers. At the bottom of your screen, you'll find some application widgets for your use. These widgets are all resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to optimize your desktop space. Now, the slides will advance automatically throughout the presentation. To enlarge the slides, click the Enlarge Slides button in the top right-hand corner of your presentation window. Now, we encourage you to submit questions at any time throughout the presentation using the Q&A widget. Please know we do capture all questions, and we want to make sure you receive an answer. Well, now it's time to get started. My name is Laura Beth Ezel, and I'm excited to moderate this discussion today. We're going to hear from two experts for this webinar. Now, to introduce our experts, we have Jason Resner. He's a veteran of the grocery retail industry with more than 30 years of experience in operations, merchandising, procurement, and sales. Now, throughout his career, he has helped drive profitability by championing strategies that enable strong partnerships, optimize product selection, and enhance inventory positioning at the store level and chain-wide. Jason joined Fresh Thyme in 2019 and currently serves as VP of Fresh Merchandising and Procurement. Matt Schwartz is CEO and co-founder of Afresh, an AI-powered fresh technology company. Since launching the world's first and only fresh operating system, Afresh has helped grocery retailers transform their fresh departments with cutting-edge technology, driving many millions in profit and preventing millions of pounds of food waste. Now, for some background here, Afresh and Fresh Thyme have been working together since 2019 and have a very productive partnership with Afresh's solution live in all 70 of Fresh Thyme's stores. As we'll touch on today, using Afresh has helped Fresh Thyme achieve efficiency gains and improvements in food waste shrink abatement, top-line sales growth, and in-stock positioning. So thank you for taking the time to speak with us today, Jason and Matt. So to kick us off, I just want to point out how timely our webinar is. We're going to go over a lot of numbers, survey results today, but there are two that I wanted to point out right away. The first is that nearly 60% of grocers currently experience out of stocks at least weekly. Now, waste is also a problem, with nearly 90% of grocery leaders reporting that fresh food shrink has an extremely significant, we've got 20.4%, very significant, 43.3%, or somewhat significant, 26.1% impact on their organization's bottom line. So based on those survey findings, which come from a recent survey of 157 grocery leaders ranging from store managers to C-level executives, it's clear that fresh departments are far from optimized. So as we go through more of these survey findings today, we'll also discuss how there's ample opportunity for technology to have an impact on these trends and other forces facing grocers. So Matt, what are some of the maybe larger forces, trends, grocers are grappling with and responding to?
There's a lot of things happening in the world of retail and grocery right now. Obviously, we're in the midst of the ongoing pandemic, inflation, supply chain issues, and more. But one secular trend that we really like to think about at Afresh, and something that hasn't changed among all of these changes, is that people really, really, really want fresh food. And that's a long shift over the arch of history. And for many decades, that there's been a lot of emphasis historically on the center store, which is also important, but the perimeter and the fresh foods around it are increasingly what people want to eat as they devote a bigger part of their wallets to eating healthier, and as they're looking to really have that awesome experience with their family or friends at home. And so this broader trend of fresh food being super important to the shopper is one that we see continuing over time.
And Jason, have your stores experienced, this rise in demand in the last maybe 1 to 2 years?
Absolutely, especially coming out of the, as Matt said, the ongoing pandemic of COVID. It's really that pandemic has really compelled people to be a little bit more innovative in what they eat at home, especially with a lot of the restaurants closing down a couple years ago. That's really pushed customers and just individuals alone into the what am I going to make for dinner now? Whereas we saw the family meals eaten at home dramatically increase over the last, definitely in 2020. And we've seen that demand continue more so on the perishable side of the business. So meat, produce, deli, dairy, where more and more people are preparing at-home meals. And we've seen that increase really high in 2020, 2021, and even going into late 2022 now. We haven't lost everything that we've gained from 2019 pre-pandemic. So there's more and more people that have gravitated towards the fresh side of the business, looking for those new ingredients, those fresher foods, as Matt had alluded to, of what are they going to feed their family. And we've consistently seen those trips increase with the demand for more fresh foods, which then it's from a segue into greater emphasis on being in stock, ordering the right amount, and really pushing the fresh side of the business as that mainstay in the grocery store. You know, Matt had identified in the past, center store usually had championed that. You know, now fresh is moving north of 50 to 55% of the total store business. Taking into account if there's no pharmacies and liquor, that has really changed in the last 5 years. So we see that trend continuing for sure.
Got it. And, now in response to this change in demand, grocers are making changes here. We've got 84.1% of grocers have invested in growing or expanding their fresh department product offering over the past couple of years. And 89.8% have invested in improving the customer experience in their fresh departments over the last couple of years. So, Matt, what do these investments look like?
Yeah, I think at a foundational level, these statistics I think it's very rare to see statistics that are like 90% of retailers or if anybody is doing something. And this is, I think, again, in response to some of the dynamics that Jason was talking about. And then also more broadly, when you think about it, with an increasing competitive online shopping landscape and an increasingly competitive brick and mortar shopping landscape, fresh is what really differentiates brick and mortar grocers from each other. And so it makes sense to really invest in being the best in fresh. And you asked about what are some of the specific things that we've seen. I think this is one thing, and just being on the call with Jason at Fresh Thyme here, it's been such a privilege to partner with them because there's a lot of organizations that are investing in fresh, but Fresh Thyme literally has it in their name, and they've adapted a model where they've significantly increased the percentage of square feet in the store that are allocated to fresh and put that more in the center of the store and really embrace that. And I think that's a bold and risky move for retailers because of the operational complexity of fresh food. Trying to sell more of it, merchandise it in more creative ways is really difficult. But I think that is really what the most innovative retailers are going to do, is double down on fresh from an assortment, merchandising, percentage of footprint of the store perspective. And then that means that there's this knock-on effect where ideally they also invest in technology to help them win in those departments. Because I think every retailer knows if you just increase the fresh food on the floor, you might delight customers a bit, but you could be in for a nightmare when it comes to operational complexity and what shrink might do or other things might do to your bottom line.
No doubt. And Matt, you mentioned that just bringing in technology into the, historic, pencil and paper type world of ordering and fresh foods and produce and meat. But bringing Afresh in really helped us at Fresh Thyme, not only target in stock, but then ultimately drive top line sales. And that's been a constant focus for us to continue the top line growth, especially in the fresh departments, being that the more you sell, the higher you can convert, and the more you sell, hopefully the less you turn into food waste. And, the in-stock positioning really important in produce, because produce is usually the cornerstone department that just because you're in stock doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing if the product doesn't look good. So if you don't have the right turns, if you don't have the right presentation, if you don't have the right assortment and allocations of how much product's on display to offer that fresh food to the customers, it's not necessarily a win-win. And Afresh has also really helped us from a product allocation as I mentioned, that toolkit really gives certain stores specifics of what works best for their stores. It's not a cookie cutter approach that all 70 stores need to have 19 rows of green peppers. Maybe some have 8, maybe some have 7 of yellow. So the toolkits from Afresh has really helped us to not only ensure we have fresh, full, and abundant displays, but also not to have too much of the wrong product to end up shrinking it out.
And that's important because we've already discussed that shrink is a significant bottom line issue for grocers, right, Jason?
Absolutely. And that the impetus for us, again, from a top line sales standpoint is really critical. But when you think about it too, from it's not just about profitability, it's also about sustainability. And we don't want to be throwing food out if we don't have to, or reducing it or marking it down when there's, people across the country and in this country and across other countries that, are trying to get food. So Afresh has really helped us minimize shrink in those instances because it provides the stores with an optimum order amount. So understanding how, all stores are a little bit different. They give us from a history-based and a real-time AI learning base. The system learns to forecast what the stores need to order based on price points that we have out there, based on seasonality, based on is it on display, is it not on display. So it's really helped us identify what each independent store needs based on technology and metrics versus 70 individual teammates ordering what they think they need, because wanting and having are two different things. With that, they just have the better opportunity to make the right decisions, to make sure that we have the right amount of products, the right assortment of products in each store for our customers, which not only drives the top line, but also helps us abate food waste from a bottom line standpoint.
Right. And it sounds like technology can be really impactful, but not all grocers have taken the step of implementing. And in fact, 59.9% of grocers use pen and paper, a manual documentation for at least one part of the ordering or forecasting process in their fresh departments. Is this really true? And why does this status quo persist among so many grocers even in 2022?
This is definitely, I think, a surprisingly high number for most people. And I actually believe that in a lot of cases, it could still be underestimated. I think one of the privileges that we've had in starting this company is that we've taken a really user-focused, boots-on-the-ground approach to building this technology. I think hopefully, Jason's not sick of us actually being in stores and things like that at this point, but we really like to get out there and understand what's actually happening on the ground. And I think historically what's happened in Fresh is you have a status quo of retail technology systems that were built for, frankly, not even center store food, but clothing or electronics or general merchandise that would then get ported into center store, kind of have some struggles there, and then get ported into bulk produce or random weight meat or production items. And then at that point, with the perishability and all the different dynamics of Fresh, those systems really might not work. And so I think there's a lot of CIOs out there, and even a lot of kind of Fresh leaders, operations teams, things like this, that think that they have processes that are totally digitized and that have really invested a lot of technology in their stores. But when you go in, you see that there's gaps in the processes, and you find those pieces of paper. You see them jotting down inventory. You see them trying to maintain a system and game it. And that happens, again, due to that root cause of a gap in Fresh specific technology. And so, again, I think that the opportunity to shift into a digital realm is not this one broad thing where you just flip a switch and your whole store is now digitized. I think you really need to be thoughtful about Fresh specific workflows and Fresh specific tools that are optimized for what really, really happens on the ground for a produce manager or meat manager or a deli manager, which is a really hard job and really complicated.
Yeah, and the impact of those outdated processes seems clear, as grocery leaders recognize that there's room for improvement in how they do things in Fresh. We've got over 90% of grocery leaders agree that increasing the accuracy of amounts ordered in their Fresh departments would improve product shelf life. And nearly 90% also agree that increasing the accuracy of amounts ordered in their Fresh departments would lead to a lift in sales as well. So Jason, what was ordering like for Fresh Thyme before you started working with Afresh?
You hit it on the head, and I think, and not even just at Fresh Thyme, but as Matt alluded to before, you could go into probably a multitude of grocery retailers right now and go to any order writer in the meat department or produce department, and not only do they still have the paper order guide and the 3-ring binder that they're rolling through, but they also have 2 pencils. One's red because the red is what they take inventory in, and the regular pencil is what they write the order in. So. And that is 2023 technology in some cases too. So a lot of the opportunities we saw here, as well as some of the history of just order writing, is what I would call a picket fence order, where if you need peppers, you order 3 green, 3 red, 3 yellow, and that's just what you need because it fills a display. And that's not just in produce too. It's even when you think about a meat department, you 5 cases of each of all varieties of sausage. Well, they all don't sell the same. So what Afresh has done for us is really to help educate our teammates more so to better understand that your order is based on your need, not your want or the efficiency of just filling in 5s when you should be putting a little bit more time into that process. So that means it caused our teams to have to trust the system, trust the input versus 30-odd years of I've always been doing it. So before Afresh, people were basically leaning a lot on gut and experience, which is really important because technology could only get you so far, and you do need that humanistic touch to it. However, what Afresh has helped us do is really educate the overall teams on doing what the business needs for the right reasons for top-line sales growth as well as abating food shrink, and has really helped educate kind of a lot of aha moments out there of you trust the system and see what happens. And we've converted a lot of teammates into really trusting and relying on the process that we now have in place.
And just building a little bit off what Jason was saying too, I think he's touched on this multiple times, which is, I think a question that I often get asked is, why only focus on shrink reduction? Like, it's important to drive sales, it's important to be fresh. And the answer is actually, it is all of the above. Yep. And I think there can be a lot of skepticism where, like, how the title of this has opportunities to do better. My contention would be that there's kind of been a pervading acceptance of a status quo in the fresh industry, where you kind of say shrink is a kind of known impact of being in stock, or if I want to increase my in stock, I'm going to have higher shrink. But there's really these keystone changes you can make where the order is the foundation of the way that the department operates, where if you order well, I would actually contend that one really overriding metric, and we've talked about this with a number of our retailers and with Fresh Thyme, is turns. If you get faster turns, which could look like in practice a lighter back room with a full floor, you're delivering fresher food, fewer holes on the floor, so you're more in stock, which drives more sales. There's lighter loads for the guys and gals in the stores who've got to work the floor and rotate product and downstack. It just makes everything easier to have a better order, and it creates this virtuous cycle where every metric could get better, and not just better, but transformatively better if you really do a better job in these areas. And so, I think that's one of the big realizations, is to really push and see like what is possible across the board from embracing all of these metrics.
Excellent and great point there. And Jason, you brought up about people, and I'm glad you did, because that relates to the next trend we wanted to bring up, and that's employee turnover. 65% of grocers experienced higher than normal employee turnover in the last couple of years, and nearly 80% of grocery leaders say it is extremely difficult, 8.3% very difficult, 28.7% or somewhat difficult, 42.7% to hire and retain qualified individuals to staff their fresh departments. Is this correct, Jason?
More than correct. And I'd go back to, this is an area I'd challenge Matt on one of his comments before of, it's very rare that you see something at a 90% level. I'd say this is probably a 98% level of grocers saying how hard it is to, really attract and hire. And we've seen, just like any other retailer, high turnover over the last couple of years when COVID hit, and being a frontline, the frontline heroes that are kind of battling through that first initial year was tough. And then we still have open positions across the board, and we are finding it tough to find people. So there's jobs right now we have at stores that we just can't fill. We're trying, but it's just one of those matters where that slide is definitely spot on.
Yeah, and the combination of turnover and vacant positions puts grocers in a bind. We've got employee turnover in Fresh over the last 1 to 2 years has led to a loss of fresh knowledge and expertise for over 52% of grocers. So are there ways technology can mitigate this, Matt?
Yeah, and I think there's a couple pieces to this. One of them is, how can technology bridge the gap and deal with this loss of knowledge? But there's also, how can the technology actually help attract people to join stores and actually have a delightful kind of employee experience at a store? And so I'll talk about both of those. So on the first one, one quote that I think always stuck with me was, one of our customers told me that now if a produce manager is to quit, they don't take the knowledge with them when they leave, now that they have a Fresh. Basically, you've got a system that can really drive the intelligence when historically a lot of that, to Jason's point, has been driven more by gut instinct or by some of that intuition experience. So I think that's really important. On the flip side, though, I think a lot of technology companies and leaders out there might contend that the technology is going to solve all of the problems. And if you adopt the technology, it's all going to be perfect. And I don't believe that at all. I think actually we've come to appreciate that part of the reason that Fresh is so hard, it's so hard, it's so complex, that you really want to have amazing talent that's there to help handle those unpredictable situations and to serve the customer and delight them. There's a lot of things where just that experience, that intuition, that hustle, that effort that a really amazing store employee has can make all of the difference in making a grocery chain work amazingly. And so the way that we've thought about this as well is, to Jason's point, if you've got a piece of somebody whose job, they come in, they've got to write orders, which is this foundational thing that then drives the rest of their work. Because if they write a bad order, they're going to have to downstack more, do way more work. They come in, they've got a piece of paper, a pencil that's normal, and a red pencil. That's almost a sign of your investment, the grocer's investment in that person and how much they care. Versus if they come in and they have modern tools, it's on an iPad or a tablet that resembles the smartphone they might have, and they're like, wow, this is cutting edge technology. It's built for me. It's the right tool for the right job to make my life easier. That's a symbol of investment. It makes the overall job more attractive. And so we've heard anecdotally and through data that retention is actually higher when you give folks the right tool for the right job in these departments. And so I really think it's both. It's both complementing and giving people the engines and tools to do better when they do leave, but it's also empowering and embracing the fact that we really need this talent to be successful, and giving them the right tools that makes them excited and keeps them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, we're still looking for those individuals that, it's a craft, it's an art between a produce department, the knowledge, a meat department. But you don't necessarily have to be a product knowledge expert anymore to know what to order. And that's what Afresh has kind of brought. And to your point about if a produce manager leaves, they don't necessarily take away the historic knowledge of knowing that you're going to have an increase in cherry orders in May, June, and July during the summer, yeah. Right? And how to plan for that, because the Afresh system can help provide that instant knowledge of history. And then especially even if somebody calls in sick, if there's a vacancy in a position, it's a smoother process to not be as concerned about the ordering process, as Matt alludes to. That's the pinnacle of how the rest of the week, how the rest of the period, how the rest of the year could potentially be impacted. It's a smoother process for someone to actually place an order, because most of that, if not all of it, is pretty much pre-populated. And it's the learning throughout the week that the AI technology helps us with of adjusting too. And the system provides those recommended adjustments for that person writing the order. Should they be the produce manager that's got 30 years of experience, or the dairy clerk that had to run in and put an order in because the produce department manager called in sick? There's the guidance there to be able to help the people do that.
And grocers seem to recognize, that the benefits of using modern technology extend into their relationship with their workforce. We've got over 90% of grocery leaders agree that using modern technology to manage fresh forecasting, ordering operations will help them attract and retain talent. And 65% are considering using improved technology to improve employee retention. What's your thoughts on this, Matt?
Well, I think I might have jumped the gun a little bit and shared some of my thoughts that are relevant to this slide in advance. But as you can tell, I'm really passionate about it. I think I would just reinforce what I said. Giving people the right tools for the right job, investing in them with technology that shows that you can make their lives easier, enable them to do a better job. Because at the end of the day, that's what they really want to do. I think that store teams, they want to be efficient. They don't want to have to, do a bunch of onerous steps that are mindless, but they also really just want to win. I think that's one really cool thing, is that seeing employees at the store level want to basically have a nice looking store. They want to delight their customers. That's what the best talent wants to do, at least. And they're really motivated by that. And so I think that giving tools that help them win is a really incredible value proposition for your employees.
Yeah, and, by skilling up, staff, it sounds like grocers can focus more on customers. We've got more than half of grocery leaders recognize that reducing manual ordering, forecasting processes would give store teams more time to, rotate products. And nearly 50% recognize that intelligent digitization results in more time to help customers. We've got 49.7%, and more time to focus on training, 47.8%. So, Jason, has that been your experience here?
Absolutely. And just to echo on what Matt said about the competitiveness of the retail sector, especially in a department manager, when you have some friendly competition with neighboring stores or neighboring regions, the desire to win takes a lot of different definitions. And, the most is obviously winning from a customer standpoint. So the more time you could engage a customer, that basically locks in a customer and transitions them maybe from a customer that just stopped in that might shop your store to a customer that's always going to shop your store now. So the investment of time, it's limited, right? And especially when it's process orientated to run and manage a department in a grocery store that every day literally is different depending on what the day brings. So being able to interact with the customer more is critical to winning, because that gets more product through the registers and more profits to the bottom line. For us, Afresh has really helped us get that consistency of time in what used to be invested into writing an order. Make sure you don't spill anything on the paper 3-ring binder, because your red pencil might blend with your graphite pencil. So the consistency in going to an electronic order guide, having recommendations in there, has cut our order writing time down as well. And that's something now, those efficiencies gained in time can be more reallocated into making sure that those front tables and produce are rotated, that there aren't any blemished or diminished freshness in stone fruit that's out there. And you could spend more time culling product and interacting and educating customers. So there's a lot to gain on the operations side, as well as the overall financial side as well, from using the right technology to really provide some good structure.
Excellent. I feel like the next time I go in the grocery store and see them writing it down, I need to walk over and be like, hey.
Yes, you do. Say you should call Matt. Say, give him Matt's number.
That's somebody you need to talk to.
I'll take it.
And ultimately, improving operations helps you better meet consumers' high standards. We've got nearly 3/4 of consumers expect produce to look fresh and delicious on the shelf. Yes. And almost 70% expect it to be in stock whenever they need it. So, Matt, from your perspective, how can stores keep up with consumers?
This is I feel like, I'm not the retailer, so I don't live and feel this every day, but I imagine Jason and others here they feel that pressure from the customer. Like, this is something where, especially through COVID, there's this need to have what you want, to have it in the store, to get it as fresh as possible. And then also, if you see some of the trends around digitization, people exploring, like Jason said at the beginning of the webinar, new recipes, feeding their family in new ways. They might go on TikTok and see some new recipe. They've got some new ingredients they haven't purchased before. They want to go to the store and find it there, and they want to be delighted. Or alternatively, if it's an e-commerce experience, the last thing they want is that substitution. It's like, oh, I've been planning my meal around this new fancy homemade ramen I'm going to do, and the, whatever noodles or whatever sort of bok choy or vegetable that might be required in that ingredient list is just not there. That's a surefire way to really let somebody down. And so out of stocks in the store can be really devastating. And then out of stocks for a digital experience can also be really devastating, because then you get that substitution that really lets somebody down. And again, like Jason's saying, in a really competitive landscape, if you let the customer down, they might take that one trip that could have been an opportunity to win them for life and turn it into an excuse to go to the store down the road. And so, long story short, I think because people are coming into stores now for fresh, and it's eclipsing 50% in the way that Jason was saying, it now means that the bar is even higher for retailers to deliver against that, which can be framed to seem like a scary thing and a risk to avoid, but also can be framed as a massive opportunity to differentiate and win.
And in light of that increasing pressure, what are the best steps grocers can take to help their fresh departments give customers fresher food and equip their operations for the future? Jason?
I think an easy one would just be find tools like the Afresh team can provide, and make sure that you have that synergy between the working relationship and a technology provider that is fluid. It's similar to what we have with Afresh, that it's a good dialogue, it's a collaborative back and forth, and it's ever changing. It's an evolutionary process, because on the business side of the fresh foods, it's never the same year over year, as Matt had kind of alluded to before with the commodities and the volatility of just what's happening this year. That's dramatically changed the landscape. So it's ever accommodating to how we work together. And fresh foods and the fresh segments of the business are going to continue to be more and more important based on how this post-pandemic newfound knowledge of cooking at home. And when you think about inflation, what it might cost a family of four to go to a restaurant now might not be that much of a fun night out. So understanding how that's continuing to build with more at-home dining, cooking, and preparing, being able to manage some of those peaks and valleys with the AI input is something that's going to be more so a necessity versus a nice to have. I'd say probably within the next 5 years for sure, if not the next 3, that's going to be kind of a cornerstone of how to just operate a business.
That's awesome. And, I think building on the point, I'm obviously biased and think that, working with us or exploring the technology that we have at Afresh is just a surefire way to transform the business and drive a lot of value really quickly. But in the spirit of also just sharing some mental models and helping advance education of the industry, I think what I would share just generally is this concept of fresh first technology is a massive opportunity more broadly, and really challenging, if you're a CIO or an IT leader in the industry, challenging that mindset that a one size fits all solution is always the best. We all know that efficiencies in technology, having simple systems as much as possible is ideal. But if you're trying to bend a system to fit the whole store, when the store really runs as two businesses, with fresh and non-fresh, that actually can cause a lot more work for your IT teams and your store teams and your merchandising teams and all of that. So one challenge would be think about fresh first technology if you're an IT leader. And then if you're on the operations, merchandising, supply chain side, similarly, I think that there's so many opportunities to embrace, again, this idea of fresh first technology. And we really believe we're pioneering that in the most foundational functions of ordering, inventory management, supply chain, and merchandising. But there's so many different things that you could do, from price optimization to production planning to ordering, inventory, labor management, the sky is really the limit when it comes to ways where taking that fresh first approach can actually yield game-changing results. So the high-level thing that I would orient folks around is this idea that doing things specific to fresh is not only an operational consideration, but it's also a technology consideration. And to win in fresh, embracing fresh first technology is a critical step to overall digitize and win the customer, drive sales, reduce shrink, become more profitable, and delight your customers. So that would be the overarching push from me.
Yeah, and Matt, in doing so, grocers can achieve some really stellar results, right?
And yeah, just as I alluded to and talked about, you've got that keystone metric of turns and lighter back rooms, full shelves that in turn drives freshness. So you can see multiple days of shelf life given back to the customer instead of getting lost in those back rooms when they just sit there, or lost in the DC when the food just sits there. And that in turn drives fewer stockouts when the floor is full. You got fresher food, fewer holes, you're going to drive more sales and more top line. And that's so important. And then at the same time, also, if the food is fresher, you're turning through it, you're going to have less shrink. And that in turn is also going to benefit your labor efficiency and create this virtuous cycle. So these are some of the metrics, but like the high level metric for all of the fresh leaders and all of the executives that might be listening is if basically investing in fresh first technology enables you to win in fresh, which is strategically, I think, what everybody wants to do.
Great points there. And that brings us nearly to the end, but some concluding thoughts from you both, Jason?
I think Matt kind of summed it up really well of, winning in fresh and, just from a traditional grocer or a specialty grocer or a big box, anyone that's got fresh foods to offer, it's we're here to serve the customer. And our obligation is to make sure that we're giving the customers what they're looking for and maybe what they don't even know that they're looking for. So the freshness of the product, the turns of the product, the ability to give us a customer an opportunity to enjoy that for days on end when they get it home in the refrigerator. We're here to make sure that we're doing our best for the customers that come in through our doors every day. And you win in fresh for sure, as it's usually that main component between a meat, produce type of center of the plate offering for individuals. So, it's tough to run a grocery store. It's not easy, but it's fun and it's invigorating because every day is different and challenges arise. And, we're talking, a big business because let's face it, we all have to eat and we have to buy our food somewhere. And, buying fresh and healthy food is something that we've seen a lot of people, more and more people gravitate towards. And that's where the fresh side of the grocery store comes into play. And looking for opportunities to make it more efficient and effective to how we serve customers is critical. And AI tools like what Afresh can offer to make the job that much more efficient, to be able to spend more time working and educating customers and delighting customers' experience at store level is really where we all want to end up. And, tools like this can really help drive that opportunity to serve the customer with what they're looking for from fresh food, as well as to provide a little bit extra time in the stores to have those department leaders engaging their loyal customers and converting some new customers. So it's one of those things that it's like I said before, it's probably going to be a necessity to figure out with a diminishing workforce and hard to hire, how do you capitalize the most on your existing environment? And tools like this could definitely help.
I don't think I could say it any better than Jason just did. I think it's been awesome to get to chat and share more about Fresh First technology and really help folks, share this idea of how Fresh First technology can drive these transformative results. And I would just say in conclusion, also just a lot of gratitude for Jason, other retailers out there. Like he was saying, this is a really, really important industry. And as we're dealing with these issues of inflation, supply chain, the broader macroeconomic turbulence that we're experiencing in the world, people got to eat, and grocers do a ridiculously hard job day in and day out. And so I'm just really grateful to have the opportunity to be of service to grocers, both at the executive level with folks like Jason, but also store teams and helping the boots on the ground do an ever better job of serving people and helping people eat healthier and fresher. So just a lot of gratitude and yeah, thanks for the time.
Well, great. Thanks, Matt and Jason, for a really insightful presentation and very timely. We are nearing the end of our time today, so I want to get to our Q&A session and try to slip in at least one question here. And that first question, Matt, I feel is directed towards you, and that's, does Afresh help grocers adapt to new products customers want and seasonal shifts in demand? Good question.
Yeah, this is one where the art and the science really come together, so it's historically been really hard. Your seasonal item, Jason mentioned cherries. It's the first week of cherry season. Are they coming in good? What week is it? I think this is something where if you've got 70 produce managers across the chain at Fresh Thyme, or if you've got hundreds or thousands, it's really hard to drive that consistency when you've got a new change like that. And that is just what Fresh is. Fresh is the first week of cherries. Fresh is the rain in Yuma that made the leafy greens grow poorly. Fresh is that, the navel oranges being delicious, or whatever it might be, or it's the ribeye that, you're really excited to sit down with and that is really high quality that week. It's just so different every time. And so technology enables that consistency, but it also needs to be able to be sort of navigated and owned and run by store teams that can help shift when there are edge cases and things. The meat supply chain, we all saw during COVID, there was all these crises and shocks. Technology companies could claim they can handle that, but being adaptable to work with people is ultimately necessary. So I think that it's that combination that really helps with some of that. But I would actually defer to Jason too on this answer. Be curious for his thoughts.
I agree. I think the adaptation to these products is critical, because when you're using technology in just the fresh side, it influences just structurally other business units too on the operations side to really help teach them consistency and show them consistency in process. What are the things that shift in demand? It's like the grocery store is different every single week. Every single day you have different customers that have different demands that walk through those doors. And, really taking that technology approach to helping guide department leaders is empowering. And watching business leaders learn that and then share that amongst different departments, you're able to pull different processes out and how that could actually influence other areas of the business. We're talking about ordering, but it could also influence how you schedule. How do you schedule your teammates now to be able to interact with customers differently? And those opening and closing times could become a little bit more efficient. So it kind of has a good halo effect on just forcing teammates to think differently than they might have over the last couple of decades.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for taking that question on. We're all out of time today. But before we sign off, I just want to thank you again, Jason and Matt, for taking the time to share your expertise and insights with us today. For our viewers, if you asked a question during the Q&A that we didn't get to, the Afresh team will deliver an answer to you via email. So please know that we do capture all of your questions. Today's webinar will also be available on demand if you want to review anything we talked about. Thanks again for watching.
Thank you.